The initial investigation points towards a possible connection to reports of unusual activity in a nearby town, following the discovery of anomalous evidence in California, suggesting the presence of a rare wolf species native to southeastern Alaska. An investigative team specializing in cryptids was led to Prince of Wales Island. Local residents have reported unsettling nocturnal sounds and accounts of individuals vanishing or being taken from wooded areas, fueling speculation about the nature of the threat. The source of this widespread unease remains unidentified. There would have been tracks left behind. What made the situation even stranger, he added, was that there were no footprints or any other signs of what could have been responsible. That's what was really weird about it, he said, and it happened a few times. It wasn't comfortable. Shortly after that happened, that's when the sound started. Like an animal that we've never heard of in distress before. The closest I can come to it is a woman getting attacked. The noises grew louder and seemed to move closer to their camp. The unsettling, repeated incidents left the locals feeling uneasy and unsure of what to do. Some of the locals believed that something in the woods didn't want them there. The fear became so intense that some began leaving the island altogether. According to the logger, he and his crew felt like sitting ducks out there. They just didn't feel safe as they did their jobs. When asked if they thought it was Bigfoot, the logger's response fed the curiosity of the crew. "We knew what it was, and people disappear out here. These things come and take them. That's why a lot of people don't like to talk about it." But the logger had more to tell. He explained to Maria and Bryce that these beings are believed to be in the mountains. When asked if he had ever been up there, he said that he would never dare because it is their territory. Yet the logger was not the only person to believe that. The old folks of the town also believed that these beings lived in the mountains, deep in the woods, away from humans. Knowing that Bryce and Maria were not Alaskan natives, the logger ended the conversation by giving them a warning. "If I were you, I would stay as far away as possible." As they flew to the target, Russell told them about the Native American legends and stories of the area they were going to investigate, as well as the existence of a supernatural humanoid being that was more aggressive and more hostile. Knowing this, the team had to be on high alert. Besides the suspected Bigfoot, there were other predators, including bears and wolves, that added an extra sense of danger to their expedition. As dangerous as the expedition was, the team was well prepared for the job. At least, that's what they thought. The team used modern technology, including drones, to help in their search. At first, the drones picked up scents like rotting flesh, wet dogs, and other smells that didn't match what they were looking for. Eventually, the equipment gave them 2 possible locations for Bigfoot sightings. To cover more ground, the team decided to split up and investigate both areas. Maria took the target with a lower altitude, and Russell took the target higher up the mountain. While taking shelter from a storm later that night, Russell and his crew heard loud rustling noises getting closer to their camp. They noticed a strong foul smell that matched what the locals had warned them about. The darkness of the woods made it hard to see anything, so Russell decided to grab a flashlight. He wanted to find out what was making the unsettling noise near them. Maria realized that it was a potential kill site for Bigfoot, something they had discovered in their previous Washington investigation. Seeing this, she quickly radioed Russell to report her findings. "Oh my God, I just found a pile of bones right in front of me, a couple of skulls and other bits." Using a handheld form of laser-guided technology, she continued to look. This was a clear sign that they were in the presence of a creature they could not see, and it was more intelligent than they had anticipated. They felt taunted. They felt like prey being watched by a predator. It was as if something was playing with their food. By this time, one of the crew had already caught up with Maria. As they stood in the darkness of the woods, they heard strange screams not far from where they were. "What was that?" "What the fuck?" Bryce exclaimed. These sounds were unlike any known animal and created a sense of immediate danger and psychological out of fear of the creatures. Russell and his team seemed to be provoking them by venturing deeper into the mountains. It was as if they were in the creature's backyard in the middle of the night. At Maria's suggestion, she and her crew walked down to the lake from where the consistent screams originated. 2.5 miles east of Maria's location, Russell was returning to where what appeared to be animal skin was hanging from a tree. Upon reaching the site, they were shocked to see that the piece of flesh had vanished from the branch gone. Using the images of the skin that the cameraman had captured, they estimated the distance from the ground to where the piece of flesh had been to be 20 feet. In his expertise, Russell knew that there was no way a bear could have done this without breaking the branches as it climbed. It had to be something capable of maneuvering on top of the trees. Critically analyzing the situation, Russell admitted that they had been outmaneuvered by whatever took the piece of flesh, since it had likely returned after they chased it away. The creatures were as stealthy as shadows, and avoided the direct light from the crew's flashlights. This led Russell to conclude that the animal had intentionally led them away from what it had left behind, in order to come back and collect it. In shock, Russell acknowledged that whatever they were pursuing was thinking 10 steps ahead of them, but that was not all. One of Russell's crew members admitted to feeling as though they were being watched by something. They knew that the previous night's rain had resulted in soft ground, increasing the likelihood of finding footprints. They opted to investigate the vast area. Looking for physical evidence, they soon realized things wouldn't be as easy as they had anticipated. They spotted a plethora of bear tracks all over the place, with nothing resembling potential prints of Bigfoot nearby. Zach explained that the numerous bear tracks were due to bears enjoying new growth as soon as the rains began. This meant that bears had been moving everywhere in search of food. Horrors of the previous night. Maria noticed how this research trip felt more dangerous than ever, because they had armed guards walking around them for the first time on any expedition. She explained that while the team had been to areas with many bears before, Alaska was different. The bears there were much larger, wilder, and unaccustomed to humans. This made them harder to predict and far more dangerous to be around, as they could attack at any moment. Moreover, since it was morning, the bears would definitely be emerging from their dens for an active day. Knowing this, Zach warned them that the bears would be hungry, and encounters could quickly turn ugly. For this reason, there was a constant sense of danger throughout the rest of the expedition. Having the armed guards really changed the atmosphere of the expedition. Even though the armed guards would be watching from behind the scenes, they served as a constant reminder that the crew was in a dangerous zone. Guards with guns might seem sufficient, but nothing could stop an angry group of massive humanoid cannibals hunting for human flesh. While most Bigfoot encounters are harmless, some can become violent and terrifying when these creatures decide that no one should come near their territory. This chilling story is tied to Portlock, a ghost town in Alaska where dark and twisted events occurred. Something strange has been happening in Alaska. Mysterious disappearances and horrifying deaths have created a chilling atmosphere. Whispers of a strange humanoid creature circulated through the land, and the fear it caused became so intense that an entire Alaskan village was abandoned. Portlock, once a thriving settlement, was left to crumble into a ghost town. But what made Portlock so terrifying? This quiet village by the sea seemed peaceful, but its history was anything but ordinary. For centuries, people attempted to live there, but the area was abandoned not once, not twice, but 4 times. Portlock's story stands out from other ghost towns across America, not just because of its haunted past, but because it seemed cursed. Residents experienced not only physical illness, but also overwhelming fear and an eerie sense of dread that weighed heavily on everyone. Even the strongest among explorers or tribes seeking greener pastures were overcome by terror. In 1867, a group of nomadic Sugpiaq natives settled there, finding the area rich in clams, fish, and moose. To them, it felt like a blessing, and they were eager to start new lives in such a bountiful place. However, the peace didn't last long. Within just a month, the Sugpiaq faced violent attacks. These weren't the familiar raids from rival tribes. The villagers claimed their attackers were something much worse: cannibal giants. These monstrous beings, large in size and ferocious in nature, didn't come for resources or livestock. They came for human flesh. Night after night, the giants attacked with unimaginable brutality. The villagers tried to fight back, determined to protect their home, but the cannibal monsters were too powerful, forcing them to evacuate once again. Yet the haunting did not stop there. By 1930, Portlock had grown, and so had the residents' sense of safety. The once strict rules against visiting the foggy parts of the forest were relaxed. In 1931, a logger named Andrew Kamluk decided to venture deeper into the forest, ignoring the long-standing caution to stay near the edges. When he didn't return, his friends organized a search party. What they found sent shockwaves through the community. Kamluk's body was discovered in a horrific state. His head had been crushed by his own sled, which was so heavy that no human could have moved it alone. Nearby, his sled dogs lay shredded, and the sled itself had been flung far from the scene. The gruesome discovery left the search party speechless. The brutality of the attack raised a chilling question. What kind of creature could possess such strength and savagery? Camlick's death was a stark reminder of the unseen predator lurking in the forest. The once distant threat felt closer than ever, and the town was gripped by fear. But it wasn't long before another terrifying encounter occurred. Tom Larson, another resident, ventured out to the shore to chop wood for fish traps. As he worked, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A massive, hairy creature standing upright on the beach. It was too large and animalistic to be human, yet its eyes radiated unsettling intelligence. Feeling both fear and an odd compulsion, Larson hurried home to grab his rifle. When he returned to the beach, he aimed at the creature, ready to shoot. But as he locked eyes with it, an unexplainable paralysis overtook him, and he couldn't pull the trigger. The creature stared him down for a moment before retreating slowly into the forest, leaving Larson shaken and deeply unnerved. Though Larson's encounter ended without violence, it solidified the town's fears. The Nantinaq was no longer just a story. It was real and growing bolder. No longer content with stalking the forests, it had begun targeting humans directly. The once thriving Portlock now found itself at the mercy of a predator whose power and presence were impossible to ignore. Camlick's death seemed to awaken something primal and vengeful in the creature. Not long after, more residents of Portlock began disappearing, leaving the town enveloped in a cloud of fear. People whispered about the Nantinaq, describing it as a vengeful spirit, something relentless and unforgiving. They compared it to a tiger that holds a grudge against hunters, or an elephant seeking revenge on those who have harmed it. The Nantinaq, they reasoned, was no different, a creature filled with wrath, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. At first, a few gold miners vanished, and the townsfolk assumed they had gone on long trips. Then a group of hunters disappeared, raising more questions. Still, people reasoned it was just another extended expedition. But as the disappearances continued, a darker pattern began to emerge. Each vanishing felt closer to home, as though the predator was inching its way into the heart of Portlock. Soon, the truth became undeniable. Bodies began to surface, their fates gruesome and horrifying. Some were found in the bay, marked with deep claw and bite wounds. Others were discovered along trails or rivers, their remains so mangled they were almost unrecognizable. Whatever was stalking Portlock had an insatiable hunger, and its attacks grew bolder. The elusive people, desperate to protect their community, tried to restore their strict ancient rules to keep everyone safe. Guards were doubled, curfews were heavily enforced, and caution became the town's way of life. Yet nothing worked. The Nantinaq was relentless, finding its prey regardless of the precautions taken. For a while, skeptics clung to the idea that a clever bear might be behind the attacks. After all, bears could roam the same territories as Sasquatch-like creatures, and their behavior could be misunderstood. But this theory quickly lost support. A discovery made after heavy spring rains shattered any lingering doubts. A body, torn apart and dismembered, was found washed down from the mountains. The damage to the remains was something no bear could have caused. The message was clear. Something beyond human understanding was preying on Portlock's residents, and the growing death toll strengthened the belief in the Nantinaq's terrifying existence. Guards patrolled day and night, but they could not stop the creature's rampage. Bodies continued to turn up along well-traveled paths, near rivers, and even washed ashore in the bay. Each was mutilated, bearing the undeniable mark of the predator. Fear consumed the town as the people realized they were being hunted by something far beyond their control. The Nantinaq, whether beast or spirit, had made Portlock its hunting ground. By some accounts, up to 36 bodies were discovered in the area, while countless others disappeared without a trace. Official reports put the number of missing people at around 15, but the native community believed the real number was much higher. They were convinced that the way the bodies were found, mutilated in ways no bear or wolf could manage, pointed to something far more sinister. As the disappearances and deaths continued, fear took hold of Portlock. Life in the town became unbearable, and survival seemed less and less likely. The elusive eventually decided to leave in 1950. Their departure was swift and unconventional, with nearly the entire population evacuating overnight. From pieces of devoured flesh to a logger's body discovered deep in the woods, this is how the hunt for Bigfoot went terribly wrong.